Welcome to tonight's podcast segment of In Focus. I'm Serena, and my co-host for tonight will be Joshua.
On tonight's segment, as we draw closer to the anniversary of Prague Spring, we take a look back on some of the various significant events in our history and their political impacts.
So let's get right into it, and let's hear our first question from Jacqueline in Prague.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline, and I just wanted to know, what ways do you think governments can escalate international tension?
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking. So, looking back on our segment a few months ago when we talked about the Hungarian Revolution of 1956, I would say we can easily answer your question with some historical background.
Oh yeah, so for those of you who don't remember, last October marked the 60th anniversary of the Hungarian Revolution, and we talk about some of the ways that it actually affected a strained tension between European countries.
And tonight's issue, Prague Spring, also happens to deal with a lot of similar issues.
After World War II, when Hungary became a communist state, there was an economic decline as well as the increase in political repression in the government.
Definitely, this was evident when we look at how the country's education and religious system had become controlled and politicized.
The revolution on the 23rd October in 1956 was really a milestone in the sense that it was one of the largest protests of the Soviet Union during the Warsaw Pact era.
So this may have even paved the way for people like Alexander Dubček, who was really the one who pushed for the reforms in the now Czech and Slovak Republic in 1968. So similarly to Hungary, Czechoslovakia, which is the now Czech Republic and Slovak Republic, was in this communist one-party ruling state, where a lot of the media was controlled by the government.
Yeah, there was pretty much no freedom of speech, no freedom of press, and no freedom of movement.
And when Alexander Dubček rose to power in 1968, he had these reformations that just challenged this one-party communist ruling view where there was no freedom of speech in the media. And he was going to loosen restrictions in free speech, media, and travel as well as having a multi-party government. And some of the European countries gathered in Dresden in Germany, and Serena will tell you a bit about that.
At a 23rd March meeting in Dresden in East Germany, leaders of the Warsaw Five, which includes USSR, Hungary, Poland, Bulgaria, and East Germany, gathered.
And they came together and they really questioned the Czechoslovak delegation over the planned reforms. The fact that they suggested any talk of democratization was a veiled critique of other policies.
At first, many countries had a lot of opposition to Dubček's proposal, but at the end they were able to come to a compromise and consensus.
So the main fear of these countries was that this capitalistic ideology would be introduced, and that was not accepted within these communist regimes.
So Josh, what was the Soviet Union's response toward the compromisation?
So the Soviet initially said that they had come to a consensus and everything, but on August 20th of 1968, they invaded Czechoslovakia with 200,000 troops and 2,000 tanks overnight. And this invasion was just sudden, and it really drew a lot of tension across Europe as far as like the UN nations and just like the Eastern Bloc itself.
Even countries within the Eastern Bloc like Romania and Albania, and countries outside of the bloc like Finland condemned and refused to take part in the invasion.
So this Soviet invasion was one of the leading causes of why Albania, a country within the Eastern Bloc, actually withdrew from the Warsaw Pact.
That's right.
So what we've learned today is that reformations in countries as small as Czechoslovakia can go as far as to impact international tension. Even if it was not specifically challenging this communist regime, there were definitely ideologies introduced that were challenging certain aspects.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to join us next week and subscribe. Next week, we'll be talking about the upcoming US presidential elections, where Trump goes head-to-head against Cruz.
Thanks, goodbye!